Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. I got a bit lost to time on this one. There is so many big, exciting events to cover right now. You're not going to want to miss this episode, trust me. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/yangdaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. The relief bill has officially passed the Senate. It will be going back to the House with the amendments for them to approve, but leadership has indicated that it will pass. From what I've gathered, the only significant amendment from the House bill was an adjustment to unemployment insurance bonus. Rather than increasing the amount to $400 a week as planned, it is being kept at $300, but the benefits are being extended over a longer period of time until September. Same amount of total payout, I believe. There was no change on minimum wage, so that provision has been simply cut. Bernie led an amendment effort to re-include it, but unfortunately not to modify it as a tax incentive. His proposal was simply to override the parliamentarian, which was never going to work. As expected, Manchin, Sinema, and other conservative Democrats opposed that. A major missed opportunity, I believe. That said, as much as I would have liked to see less conditions on the checks, even for them to be monthly, as much as I worry for the consequences of cutting out millions of voters from them, as much as I would have preferred Romney's child tax credit reform be adopted, and as much as a minimum wage increase would have helped, I don't want to be too cynical here. This bill is a win. The first relief bill only offered $600 checks. This bill offers $1,400, the biggest payout in U.S. history. The bill was initially proposing $1.3 trillion in relief. It actually increased in negotiations to $1.9 trillion, which is a near unprecedented direction, and again, the largest relief bill in history. It includes a near UBI for kids that cuts child poverty in half, and which I very much hope that we will be able to extend permanently. It will aid vaccine efforts and keep local governments solvent, preventing further layoffs. It's not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it's very major progress, and it deserves to be celebrated. And I am confident in saying that our collective efforts made real and significant positive contributions to it. So a huge thank you to everyone who pressured Congress and Biden to make this happen. But while we're patting ourselves on the back, it's time to get back to work on what was not included. The failure of minimum wage makes it all the more important to acquire an emergency UBI. And we have a petition up for that to be included in Biden's next big bill, which will be an infrastructure package. Scott has made great points as to UBI's value as liquid infrastructure. If you haven't read that article, check it out in the links below. Eliminating poverty would dramatically reduce the need for many types of infrastructure because it leaves people able to meet their own needs. We'll be developing that argument more, and we'll discuss the pros and cons of bundling these items together. For now, just take a minute to sign the petition. But that wasn't the only big bill on the agenda. The robust democracy reform bill, HR1, has passed the House. Of course, that was the easy fight. The real battle is in the Senate, where it will likely fall 9 votes short of passing, since I expect that not a single Republican senator will vote for it, despite it having broad popular support among the public, including 57% of Republicans. It passed the House with no Republican votes, and they've been campaigning hard against it. Pence even wrote an article of mostly lies about it just the other day. Hope you bookmarked that HR1 fact check from Politico in the last episode. You're gonna need it. It also has gems such as claiming HR1 violates free speech by making campaign contributions transparent. Yeah, it's a thinker. There was a time not too long ago when the Republican Party did support democracy and worked to pass the Voting Rights Act. But unfortunately, the GOP's position has changed dramatically since then. So by all means, make clear to your representatives that you want this bill passed, but also urge them that it will not happen without ditching the filibuster. And something I missed before, HR1 includes funding for states to switch to ranked choice voting. As well, a surprising last-minute amendment was made to the HR1 to include a study into impact and implementation of RCV in states and localities. Now, I certainly would prefer the study include score and approval voting as well, but voting reform being included in the bill is definitely a win. The Equal Citizens link below also has a good breakdown of the measures the bill takes to prevent gerrymandering as well. It's not just mandating independent commissions, it also requires the outcome favor no party and a lot of other safeguards. Worth a read. Democratic Senator Tina Smith announced that she has decided to support removal of the filibuster. She was one of the few on the sidelines of this issue. Progress is being made, but Manchin and Sinema remain the main obstacles. Lay on the pressure, gang. Shout out to Mitt Romney, who recently voiced support for a carbon tax on companies with the proceeds given to citizens. I had no idea that Romney was open to this. He is 100% correct. The carbon tax is the single best move we can make to combat climate change and the health effects of pollution, and the proper way to do that is to turn the proceeds into a UBI-like rebate for the people. That way, it only taxes pollution, not the poor. Always happy to find these points of common ground with members of the GOP. I wish they were not so rare. Romney definitely is the most common source. Recent jobs numbers show a sharp decline in February unemployment, though the adjusted rate is still above 9.5%, which is still horrifically bad, at least in a wage slavery economy. It gives some hope that the economy is starting to recover, but would still take years to return to pre-pandemic levels, even at February's rate of improvement. These were reported by Biden's administration. It is good to see them at least basing policy on real data. A recent episode of John Oliver's show reviewed the horrendous working conditions in meatpacking plants, with employees getting urinary tract infections because they aren't given time to use the restroom, packed together without any precautions against COVID, leading to massive outbreaks, denied medical treatment even on their own dime, and more. Watch it and ask yourself, would this happen with a UBI to meet the workers' basic needs unconditionally? Would workers put up with this treatment, or would they refuse, forcing employers to do better? While Oliver calls for better enforcement by OSHA and other regulatory agencies, let's be real about this. Regulations will never solve those issues. At best, they can mitigate them. And that's because this exploitative relationship is created by the existence of poverty, which forces people into employment out of desperation and makes them suffer whatever is heaped upon them because they cannot afford to lose the job. Poverty is a fundamental lever of economic exploitation of all kinds. It cannot be solved by regulations, whether they be OSHA, minimum wage, anti-discrimination, and whatever else, because regulations cannot eliminate poverty. Only UBI does that. Only UBI allows a free labor market where workers have the power to say no. On that note, the National Council for Incarcerated Women and Girls, as well as Families for Justice as Healing, are launching the Community Love Fund, a small-scale guaranteed income for 5 formerly incarcerated women from Boston, Massachusetts. It's intended to show that this community can better meet their own needs when given the flexibility of cash. And related news from Los Angeles, the city previously liberated funds from the police department, and they have now decided to reallocate that money to a basic income pilot. $6 million would go to a total of 500 households of single parents in monthly installments of $1,000 lasting for 1 year. Better yet, this happened as a revision of an earlier plan that would have spent the money on more conditional services. The mayor vetoed that plan, and the basic income pilot replaced it, which Mayor Garcetti approved. For all the bad in the world, UBI is marching steadily forward. Obviously, the funds coming from the police budget are going to make this particular pilot extra contentious and partisan. That is unfortunate. However, if you're looking to fight crime, a basic income is a fantastic place to start. It's been shown to consistently lower crime where it's been trialed up to 40% in Namibia. Removing the incentive for crime is a way better solution than letting it happen and then punishing it. Prevention is always best. But that's not all. Gwynedd just became the first council in northern Wales to pass a motion in support of trialing UBI, making it the 29th in the UK. Yet another win for UBI Lab and everyone else. And it doesn't stop there. Several unions, political parties, and rights groups have launched a campaign for the introduction of a national basic income in Turkey. The country is in much more dire straits than the US currently, with reports of at least 30 million starving and unemployment near 30%. There is obviously a lot of economic struggles behind those numbers, but eliminating poverty would certainly be a huge step in recovery. And let's keep increasing the scale because the UN Development Program just issued a call for a temporary basic income to help impoverished women in developing countries for the extent of the pandemic. The investigation by the UNDP shows that a monthly investment of 0.07% of developing countries' GDP could provide reliable financial security to 613 million working aged women living in poverty. Talk about the bargain of a lifetime. It could also be scaled up beyond just those in extreme poverty to include the vulnerable, reaching 1.3 billion women costing 0.18% GDP, or cover all 2 billion women across the developing world for just 0.31% of GDP. That's almost nothing. The statement doesn't mention an amount for the basic income. I'd guess it would be equal to the international figures for poverty and extreme poverty, dependent on the plan. Still, it seems crazy that it would be that small of a share of GDP. Regardless, it's a good first step toward a full UBI, and it's great to see the UN pushing for it. Are you impressed yet? I sure am. Hard to remember back when UBI was a non-issue just a couple years ago, isn't it? Now, it seems like there's a new trial starting up daily. We're winning this fight, gang. Finally, Yang has started signature gathering for his name to be on the ballot in New York City's mayoral race. Yang is participating all over the city and appears to be getting quite a big haul during his subway rides. If you live in New York, volunteer at the link below and you may be joined by the man himself. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Sign the petition for EUBI in the infrastructure bill, bookmark and share the HR1 gerrymandering details and RCV inclusion, Romney's endorsement of carbon tax, the meatpacking episode, the community love fund, the LA, Gwynedd, Turkish, and UN's UBI news, join in signature gathering for Yang, flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.